Welcome back to another episode of Behind the Anvil. I am joined today with our friend and brother of the Forge, Tim Troyer. Tim Troyer, we met on Forge and Fire. And if you would, introduce yourself, give us a little brief background
Yeah.
and how you got in knife making and all the good things you do.
Okay. So, like Mike said, my name's Tim Troyer, and my forge is called Sugar Creek Forge, and I got into knife making, man, 20, I don't know, 23, 24 years ago, and I was a bowyer. I made all bows and arrows, and from the golden age of archery, all wooden composite bows.
Ooh.
And I had a customer who bought a bunch of arrows from me. I made some, Native American river cane arrows for him. And he had a neck knife around his neck that was made by Pete Winkler. And I looked at it and I was like, man, tell me the story about that knife. And he showed it to me and I was like, man, I mean, it was amazing. And I said, where did you get that? And he said, well, I bought it off this guy, Pete Winkler, and which I wasn't a knife guy I'd never heard of. And before I could stop myself, I blurted out, which was pretty impolite, but I was like, well, what did you get for, what did you pay for that? And he got kind of sheepish and he said, well, I paid $600. And I was like, what? Like I couldn't believe it. And I've got myself in trouble at different times in life saying this, but I said, heck, I can do that.
Been there, done that.
So
Yep, yep.
yeah, you know how it is, Mike. So anyway, it was shortly before Christmas, and so for Christmas, I had been in a grocery store and I found a copy of Blade magazine, and I couldn't believe that there was a whole magazine devoted to knives, and so I bought that, and then in our Christmas gift exchange, I asked for some knife making books, and I saw one that was on making folding knives, and it was Wayne Clay and
Ooh.
Centofonte and whoever, someone else, and so anyway, my wife bought that book for me, and I just wanted to make a knife. I didn't want to be a knife maker, Mike, and so I just wanted to make one, and so I bought some 1095, and I had no tools.
That was your first mistake. Dun,
That
dun,
was
dun.
it. And so, I was hacksawing and everything else, and a friend of mine had a wood shop, and he let me use his tools, and so, I went in there and I bought an old brass door kick from the hardware store, and my very first knife was a folder, which I was just too dumb to know it was hard, so my very, very first knife I ever made was a lockback. And it was just like a boat anchor, this big old heavy thing and,
Mm.
sloppy lock. But I was so proud of that, But I'd made several mistakes. And so I thought, hey, I got to try, I got to try
I
again.
got
So
it.
I
Yeah.
made another one and, didn't, that was a little better, but I had to make another one, try to get it perfect, and finally, a friend of mine said, man, Tim, that's really cool. Would you make me one? And I said, well, I'm going to have to charge you for the materials. I said, I'm going to probably have to have $15 to, to do this. And so I made him a knife. And the next thing you know, I was a knife maker. And I'm
Kind
a
of
real
snowballed, kind of snowballed from there, wouldn't you say?
yeah, exactly. So I'm kind of a common sense learner, Mike. I read books and watch videos, but I learn the best if, like if I came out to your forge and you showed me some tricks you learned from your dad or, whatever, I learned best that way. And so I sort of, I prayed. I was like, Lord, there's got to be someone around here because I'd never heard of anyone else besides Pete Winkler, that was making knives. And I got this knife magazine and I was like, wow. And so I just, I prayed a little prayer. I was like, God, I need a mentor. I need somebody who can show me a little bit about what's going on. And so I was paging through this magazine and I would see this picture of a knife and I thought, man, if I get good, I would love to make knives like that. And I was like, I wonder who made this. And it said Rick Henderer, Worcester, Ohio. And I was like, Worcester, that's 40 minutes from me. And so I called and I got a hold of Rick's wife Lori, and I was like, "Hey, I'm this guy. I'm interested in knife making." And Rick had just been a full-time knife maker for about 2 years. And he'd been a farrier before that and part-time knife maker. And he was making a lot of beautiful art knives, beautiful folders. So I was like, man, this is great because I was interested in that. So uh, he invited me. I went out to his shop and showed him, my knives. And I didn't know how to grind or anything. I on my first couple, I did like a convex grind or what I thought was a convex grind. And so I showed it to Rick and I was like, what do you think? And he goes, oh yeah, this is kind of interesting. What's the story on this grind? And I said, well, that's a convex grind. And he said, no, he said, this kind of grind is called I don't know how to grind. That's
I think we all
so
been there.
yeah, so it was so funny, Mikey, because he wasn't mean, but he was like, dude, you got to make some straight knives and learn to grind. And so that, he helped me immensely. I would go over there on Saturdays. I'd go eat, whenever I could, I'd go over to his shop and he taught me to make Damascus and Mokame and do, he didn't hold my hand, it was real old school. Like
Yeah,
you
like we
had
all
to
like, if
ask,
you're gonna make knives, you want to make knives, you're gonna learn the old way.
that's it. And so, but he was real gracious. He gave me, I was poor. And so, he gave me like pivots and different things and, so, hey, work on this and, titanium and stuff. And then started, making straight knives and learning to grind. So anyway, um, it was a hobby really. And I started a YouTube channel. I got an assignment. So about kind of somewhere in that time, I started about 1999, 2000, in there. I was making knives, but I started a little mission organization, a nonprofit organization called The Reckoning International. And I was doing some projects in Nepal and different places. And basically, Mike, what it was is I kind of did in poor, thorough, developing countries what I did in my day job. So as a business coach, coaching businesses and people. And so basically, I worked with really poor people, helping them to make a living and make a life. So instead of looking for handouts, let's look for a hand up.
Yep.
Let me help you
Yes.
get working. And so in Nepal, I did this project and bought a bunch of people out of slavery, help them, get some land and start working and stuff like that. So, I'm working full time as a business coach and then also doing my nonprofit organization. And so knife making it was such a blessing because my job was so mental. It's just you're thinking, you're talking, you're calculating. And so it felt so good I've always been a maker. I love to make stuff. And, I'm a maker who mostly makes knives. And so I had a real impactful relationship with this old guy from West Virginia, just, up in the hills of West Virginia. And he always said to me, he was like, Tim, if I can afford something, especially tools, he said, if I can afford it, I'd buy the best I can. If I can't afford it, I make it. And if I can't make it, I do without.
Yep.
It was like so cool that became kind of my credo. And so I'd be working with different companies. I traveled quite a bit initially in my business. I coached global high potentials in Latin America for a big, huge pharmaceutical company. So I would travel a lot. And it was fun because being on YouTube, I had people who were watching me or other YouTubers. And so I'd met a lot of people internationally that, through that and through knife making. Um, and then, I just kind of kept it up and about 5 or 6 years ago, 7 years ago, I guess, in the little town of Sugar Creek where I live, I had rented at least a blacksmith's building.
Nice.
And really, it was just kind of a self-supporting hobby. I just needed a place and a big power hammer and a 300-pound Mazel power hammer and some other stuff. And I just needed a place where I could play. And I had a couple other businesses going at the same time, and then I felt like, hey, this really it should be kind of a more of a business. So I hired a couple of my buddies and we started making knives there and I leased my building from the village of Sugar Creek, and so it kind of came to a place where it's a little bit of a crossroads. And I was kind of really praying about that, like what should I be doing? My nonprofit organization, my mission organization, the Reckoning International, really started growing, and I was like, man, I'm doing so many different things. I really feel like I need to decide and kind of focus down on what that is. And so just this past year, or this year, kind of towards the beginning of the year, I shut down the commercial part of my forge. The village of Sugar Creek wanted to knock down the building I was in, and so I moved the forge briefly. They knocked the building down, and then it was just obvious to me, like, hey, I've got to really push this, um, you know, or and sort of quit the other things that I'm doing, or I need to shut it down. And so,
So
uh,
basically, you're kind of saying you're there for a while, you're getting a little too many irons in the fire and getting stretched
yeah.
too thin.
I think so, Mike. And I had lost a big sale. I had made a deal with the company for about $20,000 worth of knives, and then it was reduced to like 7,000. And so, even though that sounds like a lot of money, it was like a big hit. And I thought, it just feels like a signal. I feel like it's time to maybe go back to my first love of just, I'm kind of a hobbyist. I love making, I love making knives. I love making them from, special materials and stuff like that. And, doing stuff for other, nonprofit organizations and everything. And so I kind of made that tough decision, hey, I need to shut down the commercial part of what I'm doing. And in the meantime, I moved to a new place, and I have a really nice, place at a barn, kind of a more modernish barn, with horse stalls and stuff down below in concrete. So perfect place for foraging, and then for my machines
Nice.
that I
Very cool.
have up top. Yeah. So that's, sorry, I went so long,
Oh
but
no, that's all right.
yeah,
We call them squirrel moments. I've got a few questions. We'll back up here
sure, man.
a little bit,
Yeah.
but just keep on going. I mean, just gives us
Yeah.
insight of what's going on.
Yeah. So, when I started my nonprofit organization, The Reckoning, we do a lot of projects with really poor people in the developing world. So we work with a lot of, poor rural farmers and stuff like that. And I was in Uganda. This was about 10 years ago. I was in Uganda and I'd worked hard and, going here and going there. And then I was on my way home. I was actually driving to the airport, and someone who works for me, she's a soil scientist, said, hey, she called me and she said, hey, I want you to meet a guy on your way to the airport. Just stop at this hotel and talk to this guy. And I was like, I don't want to talk to anyone. I'm tired. I want to get in the airplane and fly home. I don't even think I can be nice, And she was like, no, you're gonna talk to him and you're gonna be Christ-like. You're gonna be nice. And so I
Yes,
was
ma'am.
like, yeah, all right.
She probably
So,
used the mom voice on you, didn't she?
right.
Sit down, be quiet, be good, mind your manners, listen.
Exactly. So anyway, I stop and I talk to this guy, and he's also a soil scientist. He's an agriculture professor at a local university there in Uganda, and he's just going on and on about soil and cows, and I'm like, oh, falling into a boredom coma, just
Yeah.
trying to be polite. And then he took this little turn in the conversation. He said, hey. Yeah, I said I'm working with this group of orphan guys, and he said they're too old for institutional help, but they're too young to make it on their own. And he said I want to get them making something, and I was like, wow, that's interesting. And he said, 400 years ago, Uganda was a blacksmithing country, and we don't hardly do that anymore. And I was just like, where, what? And he said, I'd like to teach these guys to make knives, but I don't know anything about knives.
Ding,
And he
ding,
said,
ding.
yeah. So he said, last week I prayed and I said, Lord, help me to meet somebody who knows something about making knives. And I was like, his name was Dr. Tenwa. I said, Dr. Tenwa, I'm a knife maker. And he was like, what? he couldn't, and so it just felt like such a divine appointment that God had just, and so anyway, we ended up talking. I sent plans over, for some brake drum forges and stuff like that, and got them looking for some anvils and tools and stuff. And then in a couple months later, I went over and taught them, took some friends, taught them. We forged in charcoal because you can't get coal there, so forged in charcoal, and taught them, began to teach them, to make knives. And it's in a little village called Bomba, and so we call it Bomba Forge. And all these young guys, started making knives, and they're, of course, like everyone, their first ones were not very good, and we didn't have a
We
lot of
all been there.
tools. Yes, sir. Yes,
I probably
sir.
like to hunt down some of my first knives. No, you don't need this. We need to hide this. It needs to go in the dirt, buried somewhere where nobody can see it.
Right. And so anyway, and just real primitive. We had, forge and hammers and some tongs and some rudimentary, we had an angle grinder, but they started making knives and man, they got pretty good. And so over time, it became, something where it was self-supporting. It took several years for that, where the sale of knives could, pay their salaries and everything. And but I'm so tickled to tell you that it is self-supporting. So the guys are earning. It's not a handout. It's not, hey, buy
Right.
these knives. It's for poor people. They're
Give
really
them
doing.
give them the tools and then teach them how the tools
Yeah,
and let them go from there. Let's
yeah,
pause on right there for a minute. Let's step back a little bit. I want to
sure,
get into what led you to start the Reckoning International.
good.
What I know you're kind of a pastor yourself a little bit.
Yeah,
We've shared some good prayers, especially along the show there. Especially with me being the big worry wart, like just like I am. I panicked through that whole thing. I'm
uh,
not gonna lie. Let's just step back that little real quick.
yeah,
What led you to start the international? Let's go from there and what led up to that, and then
sure.
how you rolled up, and then we'll come back and tie you into where we're at.
Sounds great, Mike. Yeah. So, I grew up overseas. My folks, my mom and dad were missionaries in the Philippines and in Nepal. So they were translators. So they would, translate the Bible. Um, they worked with a real primitive tribe in the Philippines who, no one spoke their language. They had no written language. So my mom and dad lived with them, learned their language, wrote their first dictionary, helped them to learn to read and stuff like that. So my early childhood memories are, in the jungle of the Philippines and Nepal and,
Nice. So you
different.
got pretty a worldwide education from little on
Yeah.
up. That's awesome.
Yeah, so I saw a lot of poverty, I saw a lot of need, and basically I saw two things. I saw people who were kind of preaching, to people, and then people handing out food, which I mean, those things are good. I'm not against those, but even at a young age, I saw, man, there's got to be something more. Like you've got to help people to succeed on their own, because if you don't, um, they're just going to be dependent on you.
Yeah.
And
And I think that's what kind of in this charity's good, but I think to a certain point,
yeah,
we're seeing that in Africa. Africa's got things building, but we're sending. And I bring this up. The reason I'm sorry to be interrupted is like with
no,
Africa, I've
no,
seen this documentary about shoes and how this company, you buy a pair, they send a pair to Africa. Well, the people in Africa that are making shoes can't compete with the free shoes, or
exactly.
they struggle real low. So anyway,
Yeah,
but that's kind of how you're
yeah,
saying there, the
you're
hand
exactly right.
up, not the handout. Continue.
Exactly.
Humans
Yeah,
are, we'll just keep taking and taking, and we, like I said,
yeah.
society, we can see that today's society.
It's really true. And you take away the dignity that people have in working. And, if you create this sort of entitlement mentality, like, and it's an unintended consequence. No one sending free shoes means for that to happen,
Yes, exactly.
but it does. And that's why you got to be careful with philanthropy. You got to be careful with charity. And so, our kind of my whole thesis was like, okay, we want to contribute to the success of other people. We want to get them working. We want to get them, it's like, hey, I believe God gave every single person giftedness. that they can use to support themselves and be a blessing to other people. And so we just got to help people find out what that is, and tell them, hey, we believe in you. Um, and so basically, I just saw that need. And I was doing a medical project in Nepal when I discovered that we
How
were
old
working.
were you about this time?
This was, man, I must have been in my 30s, something like that.
Okay.
And so anyway, I took a medical team to Nepal because there's this part of Nepal where the doctor to patient ratio is 1 to 80,000. So they have one doctor for 80,000 people. So there's a lot of people who've never been to the doctor. People die from infected dog bites, stuff that, there's no reason you should die from that.
Mhm.
And so, took this medical team there, and then I found out that there was about 150,000 of these indigenous people that we were working with. They're a tribe. So, like in the US, if you said Cherokee, it identifies a Native American tribe. So in Nepal, there's a tribe. They're the oldest indigenous people group in Nepal, and they're called the Taru people. And so we were working with them and found out that there were 150,000 of them in a slavery system called the Kamaya system. And I was like, what? I can't believe they're still slaves. I thought Abe Lincoln and refrigeration or something, did away with all
Yeah.
slaves. And what in the world? And there was a day a year called Magi where you could redeem slaves from their master. And so we really thought about this. We prayed about it and we said, hey, let's redeem some people. And so we talked to some of these Kamaya, some of these slaves, and they had been slaves for 3 and 4 generations. So you think about that. It's like my grandpa, my dad, me, my son. That's 4 generations. And so um, on this day on Magi, and I had a small Nepali team, and I told them, hey, we can't play around. These aren't pets. If we redeem someone out of slavery, we got to take care of them. They can't make it on their own. And so we redeemed 15 people, and it was really funny because they're animistic Hindus. They worship evil spirits. They're totally like not understanding who we are or what we're doing. And so they asked us, they were like, hey, why are you doing this? And why are you, because we said, hey, we'll buy you out of slavery and set you free. And so uh, we redeemed 15 people on that day, and we bought them like you would buy a goat at a sale or something like that. I mean, I have framed in my office a bill of goods, like a signed receipt for buying people. And because they couldn't write, they had their thumbprints on them for their signature. It's crazy. And so out of those 15 people, we told them, hey, you're free to go. There's no strings attached. We love you. You're free to go. And they were like, why are you doing this? And he said, well, we used to be slaves too, but we were slaves to the devil and to sin and to darkness. And one day a man named Jesus bought us out of slavery, but he bought us with his blood, not with money. And they're like, that is so cool. We'd love to meet that guy. We're like, yeah, we'd love for you to meet him too.
Dude.
It's so anyway, 3 of them had somewhere to go. So they told us, hey, thank you. They shook our hand. They said, this is the nicest thing anyone's ever done for us. And we never saw them again. But the other 12 were like, we've got nowhere. I said, no problem. We want to help you. So I bought little pieces of land and settled each of the families on a little piece of land that was big enough for them to grow the rice and stuff they needed to eat. And then we wanted to do some cash projects with them. And so anyway, we the first, so they were able to plant rice and subsistence farming on their land. But then we bought each of them a water buffalo cow because Nepal only produces about 80% of the dairy that they need. So if you have a cow, you have a business. I mean, you sell all your milk. There's no such thing as not selling your milk because there's a shortfall of about 20%. And so um, that's how the reckoning got started because it started and I was like, I gotta start an organization, like wait, and so a lot of the things that we learned about development and became important to us were learned doing that. And the next year, we bought 150 people out of slavery. And then the next year, the Nepali government, slavery had actually been outlawed for 80 years, but they weren't enforcing the laws. But then they had a civil war. And during the Civil War, they were afraid that these about 145,000 Kamayas would join the opposition and fight for their freedom. So they said, any landowner with Kamaya's slaves on their land, we're going to take your land. So they just booted them off the land, which, and at least they had their freedom, but it was really hard for a lot of them. And so we helped a lot of those people just with relief, like we hand out food because that was an emergency, is what was needed. But with the others, we taught them some principles of business, of, just good decision making, some character stuff. And, because it's a mindset, Mike. I mean, if you've been a slave for 4 generations, it like you
And
just
that's all
think,
you know. I mean,
yeah,
I
you,
mean,
you just think in a different way. So it's kind
that
of,
would like taking today, for example, if all the power shut off today,
yeah,
no power, no electronics, no refrigeration, back to 150 years ago.
yes,
That would be I guess, would be the closest example for
yeah,
us as what these people are living in,
yeah. You just got to learn
coming out of
everything over.
slavery, out of that, I guess, your confinement, and then into the real world of.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's kind of like you got them out of slavery, but how do you get the slavery out of them? And so it's really transforming, helping them to transform the way they're thinking, to say, hey, you're free now. Here's things you can do. And
Could you imagine what that would be like? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you
no,
here.
no,
Just like,
yeah,
what would that be like? You've been in this, I guess, institutionalized, big words here, big words, people, institutionalized situation your whole life,
yeah,
and somebody says, "Hey, you're now free."
yeah,
Well, I mean, again, I can only imagine the look on their faces be like, "Huh?"
yeah. It was trippy because just even explaining certain concepts to them was tough. But, and I think there was no genius. It was kind of Forrest Gump School of Ministry. We were, and showed up but we just kept showing up. We just kept going there, helping them, showing up, teaching, training, helping them think and affirming who they are. And, so that's how the reckoning got started. And then, you
That's
know,
amazing.
I ended up speaking at some business
I didn't know about this.
conferences.
This is really,
Yeah.
really amazing.
Yeah, that's how it got started. And then uh, I started working. I did a bunch of business training in Africa, and then was invited, the reckoning, hey, would you come? And so we ended up doing some projects in Kenya, then Uganda. And this year we just opened up Ethiopia. And I actually just got back. I was there 2 weeks ago, and it's really amazing. I have this relationship there with a prison, and it's so funny because I met them, and they knew I had done some development work in some prisons in Latin America, and so they had heard. They were like, "Hey, will you come talk to us?" And I'm like, "Sure." So I went and talked to them, and they were like, we dream of having a forge and a fab shop here in our prison. Which again, not knowing that I'm a knife maker. And they
He
said,
worked, as they say, he works in mysterious ways, right?
so anyway, I was like, well, I've started 2 forges in Africa, and I, have one at home. And I said, I know something about fabrication and about forging. I'll help you. And they got so fired up. And so I said, I'd love to work with these guys. I met a bunch of the prisoners, talked to them, and just was really cool. And so anyway, I asked the officials, I was like, hey, do you think it'd be okay if we forged knives? And they were like, hey, whatever you want to do.
That's a little interesting. I mean, it must not be a very detrimental prison, I'm guessing.
Well, you know, and it's funny because, actually, there's a lot of Russian prisons where that's what the prisoners make. They make knives. I mean, there's a lot of them actually made in
Really?
prisons. Yeah.
Man,
And
I've been a sheltered person. I need to get out. I need to hitch my wagon to you a little bit and get dragged around. That's one thing I'd love to do though. It's to follow you
Yeah.
around and learn because the stuff you've told me, you've shared with me in the past, it's
Yeah.
like, I mean, yeah, we got this. We can look into the world, but being there,
Sure.
being in the situation, and seeing
Yeah.
what you did and what you're doing is just absolutely
Well,
amazing.
it's a lot of fun, Mike, and it doesn't, people, I'm not sure why people are kind of intimidated by it being overseas and stuff like that. And they see poverty as a big problem. And I tell people all the time, I said, poverty is not a big problem. It's a big hive of lots of little problems. And you can solve those little problems,
With a
you
little
know,
education,
yeah, you don't have to be
the
overwhelmed. So like
tools.
like for instance in Nepal when we did the redemption project, I bought I bought a man who he didn't know how old he was. We guessed between 65 and 70. But he had worked hard all his life in the fields. He was just broke down.
Do we need to pause for a minute so you can grab a drink of water? I think you're getting a little heartburn too. So
I'm good.
you sure? Okay,
Yeah.
I can hit
Thank
pause
you.
anytime. So if
Thank
you
you.
do need a break, let me know. I should have said that
Okay.
earlier. So
We'll do that.
I know that feeling. That's why I
Yeah.
bring the
I'm
water.
gonna get some in a minute, so we'll do that.
Okay,
We'll
just
take a
let me know when we
pause.
can hit pause and then we can take a break and
Sounds
then
good,
jump right
buddy.
back to it.
Sounds
Anyway,
good.
go on, tour.
Yeah, so uh you know, I bought this guy out of slavery. He was over, between 65 and 70. He just worked hard all of his life in the fields, all of his life. Slave. His dad was a slave. His grandpa was a slave. And this guy, no education, he could count to five and was just broke down, was just rode hard and put away wet all his life. And so his master was selling him because he was just, and Mike, I bought that guy for $8. For
It's
eight
so weird
dollars.
to
So
hear. Weird to
yeah,
hear to
so
say. I mean, eh, you hear buying something over here in this country, either a prostitute or something like that. But it's just so weird to actually hear that you bought somebody. I mean,
yeah,
oh, but
and
anyway,
I'll show you the deed I have. It's just crazy looking. But this guy, so for the price of Starbucks coffee, I bought a human being and set him free and then helped him, said, hey, we have some work that's not hard that you can do. We're going to help you. And, I look at that and I say, okay, I can't do everything, but I can do some things. And if every single person did something, just something, it could be small. But it's like, it's not hard to solve problems. I mean, there's a widow in Kenya who is HIV positive. I loaned her 35 bucks to start a little store in her house. And, she's HIV positive. She didn't have the money to take her medicine. She didn't have the money for her kids to go to school. And when I met her, she was just so depressed. And her name is Scylla. And I said, Scylla, look, we love you. Uh, you know, we want to help you. I said, I think you'd make a great businesswoman. She was like, what are you talking about? I said, yeah, I think you'll do great. And so we took Scylla through a little bit of training. I loaned her $35. She started a little store in her house. She paid the money back. She got another little loan from us and did more and paid that back, and then got another little loan from us and paid that back, and so I mean, $35, she builds this little store and she's living, she's paying for her medication, she's paying for her kids' school fees, they're eating, they're happy on a $35 loan. And so, it's really, there's so much you can do for so little. Yeah, okay, there are some really big, huge challenges and problems out there. But the reality is, if a guy as simple as me, as down home rednecky, half Amish redneck as me, can do something in the world to change people's lives, anybody can. And so anyway, and early on, what was so cool is my knife making. I didn't make a lot of money at the time. I had a young family, a lot of, expenses. And so knife making gave me an outlet where I could make a knife. So when we redeemed people out of slavery, I made a couple of knives, auctioned off for several $1,000s, and then I bought people out of slavery with knife money. And so to
nice.
me,
So you cut the chains.
knives,
I guess you could say cut the chains of slavery.
yeah, there you go. And
Sorry, puns there.
no,
I
no,
had to
no.
pause.
And so I'm just like a lot of other knife makers. It was like I was working and, like I said early on, I had a young family. I didn't make a lot of money. And so, my son would need band shoes. Like, hey, Dad, I need band shoes, and they're 125 bucks. I don't have the money. So in the evening, evenings I would just go out to my shop. I would make a knife. I would sell it and buy my son band shoes with the money. And so it was a way, it was something I loved. It was something that I enjoyed doing as a hobby, but it was also something that was a side hustle that I'm super grateful. I'm grateful to the Lord. I'm grateful to the knife community, Mike, because so many, many people helped me. They helped me. They taught me things. They gave me things. They let me use their machines. And it was amazing amount of camaraderie. And I have such an affection in my heart and such a love for knife making basically because what it represented. It represented a way for me to work hard with my own hands and take care of my children, to take care of needs that we had as a family. And then it also was the means by which I had something to give, where I could make several $1,000s and then buy a human being out of slavery with money that I made making knives. And so it was just so rewarding. It was like, holy cats, uh,
And I
making
find
knives
this.
and changing lives, and so basically again, then when it was funny because I was driving in my car one time years ago and I was praying, I was just talking to the Lord and I said, hey, thank you for knife making. And I said, I'm going to lay my knife making on the altar, anything that you can use it for. I just pray that you'd be able to use it. And then I felt kind of stupid. I was kind of like, oh man, that's so corny. Like, God's worried about world peace and all this, and I'm offering him knife making. And I just felt kind of silly for saying that. And I didn't hear a voice, but in my heart, it, loud, I heard, hey, don't you ever say that. Don't you pour this. He said, I treasure anything you want to give me. And that is precious to me. And don't feel dumb. And so I feel like what's been so cool is over the last 10 years, I've been able to help orphans who, they're just so fatherless,
Mhm.
needy, like my manager of Bomba Forge, his name is Emmanuel Lumu. We call him Emma. And so Emmanuel Lumu, he was 17 years old when I met him. His mom died when he was 2, and his dad died when he was 15. And so he'd just been wandering for 2 years, just sometimes staying with relatives, sometimes on the street, just adrift. And my leader in Uganda told him, said, Emma, come to the forge. We'll be your family. And so we took him in, helped him get a place to stay. We taught him how to make knives. And he's an excellent, and today he's the leader. He's the general manager of our forge. And he's been invited. He'll go this year to Italy to speak at a conference and talk about development. It just makes me
That,
laugh. He's this
that's so
orphan.
awesome.
Yeah. And now is going to go and talk in Italy about how Bomba Forge, has changed the lives of all these orphans. And so, Mike, it was just really, so all of that I owe to knife making, and I owe to the knife community, to people who encouraged me, people who helped me learn. And, I feel such a debt of gratitude. And to me, that's much more important. Like, obviously got to meet you on Forged and Fire, and it's like, hey, that was fun. I went there to win. I'm not playing around. I didn't, but it was so fun. And
I
my
beat
goal,
just for remember people. I beat him by a tip. By a tip. As the only way I had the broken knife, and I beat him because his tip curled.
It was awesome. But it turned out so good because, like I told you, I felt like every one of us got out of the experience what, was good for us. And
And
so,
like we covered with John,
yeah,
we covered, this episode wasn't originally, you were supposed to come earlier and you got snowed
right.
out and got
Yeah,
pushed on the end. He got a this situation. He wasn't, no, he got bumped back. And
yeah.
I was a fill-in, which was really all of us a fill-in. I think the
So
only
cool.
person that was set to be on that episode was Ken.
And
And
yeah,
he does some beautiful work. I
he
still follow.
does.
I'll follow him. It's like, you know what? oh, I know who makes that style knife. I'll go to his page. I'll stalk people's pages and look at
Yep.
it, and okay, I'm gonna see if I can replicate it. And I tried to make some dirks. Well, I made them a little.
Yeah.
I got to go back. I think I got to pull them out a little bit more. But like you're saying
Yeah.
about the knife community, and I think that's a little because when I started doing my knife classes, Fortune Fire gave me the hey, if I can do that, I can start offering knife classes. And of course, I'd
Yeah.
never taught before, and I'm like, well, how the hell am I do this? Okay, I'm just gonna do it this way Dad taught me. Throw you in the forge. I'm gonna teach you the way I make my knives, and it's good for people that want to make it. And it was kind of shown to me in a previous episode we recorded here not too long with Cowboy and Eileen. He's like, well, when people want to make knives and they're going to make knives, I'll teach them the way we were taught. But if it's a handy guy, the guy just wants to, hey, I build a knife, we do it this way, and I'm like, I never thought of that. Okay, but I'm going down tirade. But
Yeah.
it's just like I've had people it's like, oh, don't teach people, you're going to run yourself out of business. Like, buddy, there's over 4,000 people in this country
Yeah.
making knives.
That's
It's a whole different community, and we don't. And there's a lot of people. I didn't. It's like an older gentleman took my class. He went home. He was an older guy, I think getting close to retirement, wanted something to do. He
yep.
called me. He says, hey, I think I'm getting pretty good at this, and I'm getting a bunch of knives here. I'd like to kind of recoup some of my money. Do you mind if I start selling? I says, buddy, tear it up. Have
That's
fun.
right.
I
Yeah.
mean, you don't need my permission to sell knives.
No.
I mean, just give me a little credit for,
Yeah.
I guess, give me, a little credit for helping you. And
Sure.
but
Yeah. No, Mike, it's so true. That law of reciprocity. I mean, I've been doing it now for, I don't know, 23, 24 years or something like that.
30
And
years since I
yeah,
was 10.
that's awesome. And so, you know, uh, I've seen people come and seen people go. I mean, I remember the first time we went to the Blade show, I was with Rick Henderer. We drove down together.
Yep, I remember we
And when we
met you
went
there.
in, uh, you know, I was looking around, and this was probably, man, like 1999 or 98 or something, so it was a while ago. But I was looking around and so amazed, and he said, Tim, I want to tell you something. He said, a bunch of these people in 5 years, they will no longer be making knives. And I was like, what are you talking about? And even some of the people that I admire that won awards that were really, really good, they just, for whatever reason, stopped. They got sick of it or whatever. And so I've seen people come, seen people go. But I've noticed that the people they're not just making a living, they're making a life. They really enjoy what they're doing. They're making a living, they're making a life.
Right.
They, in general, and the bulk of this is fun because it's the bulk of knife makers. They're generous. They share with other people. They tell you how to do things. There'll be, some stuff that they keep under their hat because it's new or, whatever. But in general, there's very few. I did run into some who you'd ask them, hey, how do you do this? How do you do that? And they were like, I'm not telling you.
Well,
But
there's
those
those
were
people.
few. Those were few. But what was so interesting is you look at their lives and they weren't successful in knife making and they weren't successful in making friends or in having a relationship with other people. And I feel like again, it's just a law of reciprocity in life that what you make happen for others, God makes happen for you. So it's one of
Amen.
the ways that you actually prosper in helping other people. I saw a study this past week on philanthropy, and these were just completely, neutral, non-religious, studies of giving, and they said it's clear, empirically clear from all of these models that we've studied. If you're a generous person, it comes back to you. And I just laughed and I was like, yep, that's my experience. That, when you help other people, there's a proverb I love. It says, when you water another man, you water yourself. When you're pouring water on this plant, you're watering yourself. And so, yeah, there's a place for keeping certain things under your hat until you have it perfected or, it's your patented thing or whatever. Hey, I totally understand that intellectual property and designs and stuff. But you know as well as I do, Mike, the difference between, someone who's an a-hole who won't they won't lift a finger to help you. In fact, they'll discourage you. And then all the other guys who are there to give you, good feedback, honest, they'll honestly critique and say, boy, you got a lot of work to do. But they're generous with advice, generous, with tools, with materials, and it's a great community, and I'm very honored to be a part of it.
Awesome. So now let's tie it back. We've got where you can, reckoning and where you are, what you've done up to this day. Um, the Bomba Forge. We kind
Yeah.
of got heard a little bit of that and how you got that started.
Hmm.
What's new with that? We did cover a little bit with John, but let's hear a little bit more from your end. You scaled back from your business coaching, you were
Yeah.
saying, and now you're more focused on the charity.
Yeah.
And the knives, I guess, would be more your therapy to kind of
Sure.
cut the stress of life out.
Right. Yeah. So, uh, in Uganda, we've started a second forge in a place called Tororo. And that's really fun to see some new guys. They're coming on super strong. And I was teasing the Bomba Forge guys. I said, these guys are doing such good work. They're going to kick your butts if you don't, get with the program. And so, um, we've been working on perfecting the knives. I'm so tickled. One of my just very best friends, his name is Jay Rao. He's the owner of kniveshipfree.com. And so Jay's been
Big shout
coming.
out to Jay.
Ooh, Jay, Jay, Jay. And so
We'll have to
Jay,
get him on here too. So
oh, you need to. He's just one of the most interesting people I've ever met. But Jay has been helping for the last 7 years or so, and then more and more. And so actually the bulk of Bomba knives are sold on kniveshipfree.com. They do drops of Bomba knives. And Jay has also been a super, just a behind the scenes advisor. Hey, this is what we should do. That's what we should do. And so really right now, it's kind of transitioned to a little bit of a steering committee, which is John Wigger, Jay Rao, and myself. And more, I'm pushing stuff towards them and saying, hey, you guys, Jay, you plan and think about what we want to sell, what we want to make. Um, and John, you work with the guys. Let's keep so we every year we try to do new, teach them to do new things to improve their blades, to say, hey, here's how we make them better. And then the addition of this forge in Tororo, it's really nice. We built, a nice forge. We have other projects there too. I mean, we knife making in the Reckoning is a very small part of what we do. I mean, we train hundreds of farmers and do a bunch of other stuff. But so I'm really excited because Jay brings, I mean, Knife Ship Free does, I don't know, 10 to $12 million worth of knives a year in sales. So he really has his finger on the pulse of what
very
should be
nice.
done. And so, and then we've also, it's just really interesting. We smelted some steel. So Uganda has some really good iron ore.
I
And so,
remember you telling me this story.
yeah,
You found the elders and took them out
yeah. So
for
we went up in
Uganda.
the
I want to
mountains
hear
and
this. Yes,
found,
let's dive into this.
yeah. So we went up in the mountains and we found these old blacksmiths in their 80s. And they said, hey, we remember smelting iron ore into steel when we with our grandpas and our dads when we were young, and one older guy had done it. He was 85, 86 years old, and so they made a clay cupola. We took all the Bomba guys on a road trip there. It's about a 6 hour drive away, or 7 hours, right up on the border of Rwanda in the mountains. And so these old blacksmiths built a clay cupola, and then we got this beautiful iron ore right out of the ground, and they, hammered it into little pieces and stoked with charcoal. And, we're blowing with these handmade bellows, goat skin bellows. Man, it was just like something out of the Iron Age, just something at a time. And they had this fern that they put in with the charcoal and the uh, iron ore. And they were like, is some magic, but when it was burning, it smelled a lot like ammonia, and it was a flux. It was just this natural flux. And so we smelted this incredible bloom of steel. And,
I'm
as it
jealous.
kind of matriculated, down through, it picked up carbon, and it sparks a lot like W2. It looks exactly like W2 when you spark test it. And so what's really fun is,
And W2 for those who don't know is a form of steel.
yeah,
Uh,
thank you.
so sorry about that.
Yeah, no,
We
no,
want
simple,
to. I
straight.
kind of want to do part of this is I want to
Good.
teach and get great stories like yours
Yeah,
and share it with the world. So at least that's
yeah. So,
prayer, Lord
so
willing. Anyway, go on to.
yeah. So anyway, we had a lot of fun doing that and sort of capturing that on video and our guys learning and some of the younger blacksmith in that area learning. And man, it was just in time because maybe like 6 months later, two of those gentlemen who had led the experience passed away.
Yeah.
And so I'm
Well,
so glad that,
thank the Lord that you were able to capture
yeah,
their own history, their own part of
yeah,
their culture that was starting to roll out, unfortunately.
exactly,
So
exactly.
that's
So
awesome.
yeah, so we're planning to do that again this year, this coming year in 2026. We'll go. Um, we part of our plan, we're going to make some really nice presentation knives for some government officials. There's a king in Uganda, and his tribe, it's the Buganda people. And it's kind of where the name Uganda came from, was from there, Buganda. But he's like the royal family in England, so he doesn't have a lot of just political power, but he's a huge uh,
Figurehead kind of.
figurehead, yeah, and he has some, authority. He owns a lot of land in the capital, and is very wealthy, loves young people, and so what we're planning to do is we'll go back, take the guys into the mountains, we'll smelt some steel, and then um, we want to make a knife or make some knives, presentation knives out of steel that we've made to present to some government officials, and particularly the king of Buganda. And so
Nice.
I have some contacts, a friend who's a friend of his, and he's like, "Hey, you do this, I'll get you to see him." And it's really fun because we've had some other people who've talked to us about, like Will Stelter and some others, who said, "Hey, we really want to help you in what you're doing. We love the fact that you're doing good charity around knife making, and that people are working, you're not just giving handouts or something like that." And so I'm really excited about that, Mike. It just becomes a fun extra thing. And then Ethiopia, is coming on strong. I'll need to raise all the money that I need. I raise privately from donors, and so I'll raise money to build a fab shop and a forge there, and for sure we'll do like farming tools and stuff like that in the prison. But I also, if the conditions are right, I really want to make some knives with those guys,
Right on.
and so we
Um,
might have Ethiopian prison shanks.
oh Lord, heavens, that's terrible, 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 terrible. Now and then I remember you telling me that you have a little farm, not only with the blacksmithing and the bladesmithing you got going on at the Bomba Forge, but you also got a eucalyptus tree farming.
Yeah, you've got a good memory.
Yeah, I kind of scared John when it's coming up like that. This like, how do you remember this? It's been like
Yeah,
I don't. It's the ADHD superpower I was
there
blessed
you
with.
go,
So,
baby. Oh,
um,
so there, again, the big problem in Africa, in that area, East Central Africa, is a lot of orphans. So to give you a perspective, when I say a lot of orphans, so in the continental US, statistically, it depends a little bit on who you talk to, but we have a little over 400,000 orphans in the continental US. So in our whole country, 400,000. Okay, Uganda is about the size of Oregon. They have 3 million orphans,
wow,
and one of
that's
the
about the size
lowest,
of a small city here,
yeah,
major city here.
yeah, and
So,
one of the youngest populations in the world. So they're very young. So we were looking at this, and I love, there's, Bible verse. It says, "Pure religion and undefiled is this, to help widows and orphans in their distress, and to keep yourself from being polluted by the world." And so I'm like, okay, I am a simple rednecky, yeah, that's simple. Okay, pure religion. Yeah, you can go to church, you can do all these things, those are good. But if you want pure religion, it's help widows and orphans in their distress and keep yourself from being polluted by the world. Because you and I both know, Mikey, the world wants to pollute you. It's
Yeah.
just it's hard to stay unpolluted by the stuff that's out there. And so anyway, I was praying about it and thinking about it, like, hey, we want to help these people, but really, I believe God's will is that Ugandans take care of their own orphans. That it's not, the answer to all orphan problems in the world is for some great white savior from the US to come and help everybody. No, I don't believe that for a second. It's like we need to help empower them. And so what happened was it that I mentioned that HIV positive widow, Scylla, in Kenya, she had third grade education. And she came to us one day and she said, hey, if the Lord tarries, I'm going to die if there's not a miracle. I've got full blown AIDS, and I'm going to die. And the thing I'm worried the most about is my kids' education. And so she said, I planted some trees on my land, and mind you, this is a lady, a poor lady she went to 3 years of school, so third grader education. And she said, I've planted enough trees on my property. And she said, when if I die, I want you to harvest trees and pay for my kids' education. And we were like, that doesn't,
Wow.
I don't think that's gonna
That's where that
work.
comes from, huh?
Yeah. Yeah, dude. So
That's
we
love
got,
right there.
I'm
That is.
telling you, so we got a forester to come and look at our property. And we said, look, this is what this lady is saying, and I don't think it's going to work. And he goes, no. He said, this is super clever. She has enough trees here. If you harvest them, you can pay for her kids' education and their first year of university. He said, she's brilliant.
Wow.
And so that's how I got the idea. And that's why we
Ooh,
also
I
say
got
in the
goosebumps
reckoning,
over that right there,
dude,
man.
it's so cool. And so we say in the reckoning, one of our sayings is we say, solutions to poverty are found among the poor. And so again, we just, you know, we got a little bit of land and we started planting eucalyptus trees with the desire to say, hey, let's harvest these sustainably. So we'll get a sawmill going. The guys who run the sawmill, they make their money. We harvest the trees sustainably. We sell them. The profits go to pay for widows and orphans, or widows or orphans to go to school. Because technically, in in all of the African countries we work in, technically education is free, but it's not. You have to buy your books and uniforms and stuff. And so there's a lot of kids who don't go to school just because they can't afford the fees. Or we'll meet kids doing things like hammering rocks into gravel just to earn the money to be able to go to school. And so we were like, hey, you know what? This is something we can do. And so what's crazy is we hired in this one community we have 35,000 trees planted.
Wow.
And so when we were planting them, there were a lot of widows in the area who needed work, and they work way hard on farms. And so they came to us and they said, "Tree planting is easy. Can we do it for you?" And we were like, "Sure." And so we had these widows planting trees. We paid them. They used that money to support their family and to send their kids to school. And then the trees get harvested, and we use the money to pay for orphans' education. And so it's just crazy how, cyclical it is. And again, what was so fun, knife making, of course, gives me, and, more and more, especially when I had a business, we did a lot more, we made a lot more money and, I had a lot more to give. But I was able through knife making to plant trees, to do a whole bunch of other things that were really, really fun. And I look at them now and I say, I mean, we conservatively, we have probably $1 million worth of trees in the ground.
Wow. And when
And
you cut one, I'm assuming you cut and you
yeah,
replant. And
yeah, exactly. Exactly. So
how
we,
long does these trees take to grow to be harvestable enough to
yeah,
be profitable enough to help these out? How long does that usually
okay.
take?
So it's a really good question. So over there in Uganda, they have two growing seasons per year, whereas we have one. So, you know, uh, these hybrid eucalyptus, we plant eucalyptus and cypress trees. And Um, we've planted a couple other things, but those are the main ones. They mature to where we can sell them in 10 years.
Nice, very nice,
It would
very.
take 20 here, but because they have two growing seasons per year, it's 10. And so the cypress take a little bit longer. But the beauty of it is you buy a little seedling for pennies and plant it, and then in 10 years it's worth $100 or whatever it may be. And so it's really a cool thing. And then it becomes something that, again, a solution to poverty that comes out of Ugandan soil. It's not us giving them money. So my team, they help the widows plant the trees. They take care of the trees. They work on them.
Do you need to take a break real quick, get some water?
I
Or
do.
let's,
Yeah.
let's, folks, we're going to take a quick potty break, it's a water break. I'm going to do the same thing. We'll pause and we'll be right back with more. We're back, folks, real quick from a break. Tim, will show us what you got here.
Yeah. So Mike, I just grabbed this during the break, but this is what I was talking about. This is a bill of sale, a receipt. Um, for people I bought out of slavery. And I framed this and put it in my office just, as a reminder. And I pray for the people. But you can see
Amen.
because they couldn't write, they put their thumbprints on
Yes.
here. And, it's basically a receipt that says, hey, here's the amount of money for goods sold. And, it's just a reminder to me. And just, I thought it'd be something cool
Man,
to
that
cash
that's
in.
that's and do you still do things in Nepal still to this
Yeah.
day, or
Yeah. So I was supposed to go there this month. Um, I was going to do a youth conference for a bunch of the children of, many of these young people, like teenagers who are children of people we bought out of slavery. And so they had a lot of violence in Nepal, though, especially young people. They were protesting, and then the police shot a bunch of people, and the prime minister ended up stepping down, and just it was. And so they were like, "Hey, Tim, don't come. It's too dangerous."
a lot of
And the
unrest right now
government,
to travel?
yeah, they were like, we don't want to gather 600 young people together because the
Yeah,
government's going to think, we're fomenting insurrection or something like that.
that's
And so, but
understandable.
as soon as things calm down, I'll go there.
And now,
Uh,
Nepal, if I remember correctly, Nepal is just above India, or is
yes,
that
sir.
correct?
Right between India and China. So
Okay.
just above India, just below China, Tibet. And but yeah, a lot, it's so much fun to be with people that, like, I'm amazed. So, one of the original people that we bought out of slavery, the first group of 15, this guy, his name is Tagu. He was the only person in that 12 people who could read. And so we started translating some portions of the Bible, and so Tagu helped us because he could read, and he was the only Taru that we knew who could read and write. And so at the same time, we were helping them to plant rice, their harvest, and they needed fertilizer. We didn't have the money to give them fertilizer, so we just gave them the seedlings. And when they planted their rice, they all talked together, and we were being super careful with them because I didn't want to force anything on them or force religion down their throat, or so we were real careful. And so anyway, Tagu, in his translating, he told this group of people, he said, "Hey, I don't know much about these Christians and why they're doing this stuff, but he said, I am reading their book, helping them." And he said, "I don't know much, but their God, one of his names is Lord of the Harvest," because they had read this verse that says, pray that the Lord of the harvest will send laborers out into the field. So right from the Bible, he had read this. And so he said, we ought to pray to him. And they're animistic Hindus, so they worship 30 million gods. So they're like 30 million and one, no problem. Let's add Jesus, let's add him. And so they went out in the field and stood in a circle. And Tagu prayed this prayer. He said, "Oh Lord of the harvest, bless our rice so our kids don't starve." You know, it's so cool. And so I went there. I saw with my own eyes that harvest. So it wasn't like a story and someone told me. I was there when they harvested the rice, and they harvested an unbelievable bumper crop.
Oh
Like
wow.
they harvest,
Oh
Mike,
man, I'm getting the cold chills from
dude,
this.
they harvested way more. They harvested 40 measures per little thing of land. They have their own measurements. And all their Hindu neighbors came to them and they said, "Hey, what are you doing that we're not doing? We laughed at you guys because you didn't fertilize your rice. We were like, you dumb slaves. You're not going to get anything. And yet we fertilized and you got more rice than we did. What are you doing that we're not doing?" And they told him, "We worship a new God. His name is Lord of the Harvest."
Oh
And
man.
that's how all 12 of those Taru people came to know the Lord. It wasn't through us preaching or ramming religion down the throat. It was that miraculous harvest. And
Man,
what
I
was
mean,
so,
what is it to have that kind of faith? I mean, that
oh,
blind, I mean, just I think that's
so,
something we take as for granted, I think, as Christians. I think we really do because
yeah,
we have been blessed to be where we are. Yes, we do have our problems here and everything else. I
yeah,
mean, our poor has phones.
sure. That's exactly
Um, it's
right.
just
Yeah. And this, it was so cool because without any teaching, like we didn't teach them this. So it was 100% the Holy Spirit working in their hearts, but we didn't do any teaching with them about this. But they brought a tenth of the harvest to us. So the tithe, they brought a tenth of their whole harvest to us and tried to give it to our Nepali team. And we told them, we're like, look, you guys are just out of slavery. Don't, you just keep that for now. That's you just keep that next year. If you want to give, you can give. And they got mad. They said, we're not slaves. You don't tell us what to
to
do.
do.
This
That's
belongs,
awesome.
dude. They said, this belongs to the Lord of the harvest. It's for poor people. And they're classified by the UN as the poorest of the poor. They exist on less than $200 a year. And so, untaught, they come with a tenth of what they have to give it and to say, we want to help poor people. Oh, dude,
Kind of
it was
makes you
just
step back. I said, I
amazing.
need to examine my life. What am you weren't, I mean, there's some. I think there's something in the Bible, something about that the faith of
A mustard seed.
yes, thank you.
Yeah.
And that's what that reminds
Yeah.
me of that. That is, and like I said, this is the
And
first time I'm hearing this, and I didn't know that where you.
yeah,
Wow.
man,
And
it was amazing. It was amazing. And it's like I've met people, hugged the necks of people that I bought out of slavery by making knives. It's just crazy. It's
there's something I
crazy.
brought up. I was thinking earlier when you're talking about, you bought There's something. Of course, when I got into it as a kid, I sold a knife. I got money. I'm like, ooh, I can go do what I want, get what I
Yeah,
want. But my parents are like, spend it wisely. Your money, once it's gone, it's gone. You got to go back and earn it.
that's
And
right.
that's one thing. It's nice to be able to build something, make Damascus, take cable. I'm really enjoying this cable Damascus. I used to do
Yeah,
the O1 and 836 mile steel. I don't do that anymore. Dad doesn't do it anymore. Dad's 75 now. He's starting to realize he's up there. He's a three
yeah,
quarters of a century now.
yeah,
And I got him doing cable. And we got him doing some different stuff, doing the propane and got a new forge. So that's kind of cool. So I guess you can teach an old dog new tricks, but it's just something that I can, you know, take this knife that I made,
yeah.
make this, having fun doing it, even though it sometimes drives me up a wall like a fit and finish part. But I could sell that. And it's like my daughter just got her driver's license today.
Yeah,
She turned 16. The money I paid for it, I sold a knife.
yeah,
Something I got to do with my own. And I mean, sometimes, not trying to be too prideful, but I take a little pride in that. And it's a whole new level of joy, I guess. I mean, I
yeah.
don't know how to describe it. And you're kind of conveying that. I mean, it's all through a knife.
Sure.
You literally cut the chains of slavery with
Yeah,
knives.
yeah.
I mean,
It's
we
so true,
made,
and it's just rewarding, and I think again, probably I'm sure that a huge amount of knife makers out there and people listening to us, Mike, would relate, and they would just laugh and
yes.
say, "I know exactly what you're talking about."
And we all help each other. We help.
Yeah,
I like I've helped. We've done. Remember a few years back, I
yeah,
got with you and everybody kind of coordinated.
Oh,
We all built kind of a knife, a kitchen kit set, and
mhm.
I think we raised like 5, 6 grand.
Yeah.
We bought some bought some charcoal for the forge. I think that lasted like 9 months, is what you're saying, or almost a
Yeah.
year worth of
Yep.
charcoal for him. Um, and I try to give a little bit, but one of my biggest things, a friend of mine had pulled me aside, is, hey, it's okay to give, but you're starting to give yourself a little too much. You need to pull back a little bit. You're getting detrimental to yourself, and I didn't realize it, but I just,
Yeah.
I was there when I needed stuff. And, like I shared with my daughter who passed away. It's been 16 years.
Yeah.
The time we prayed after her drowning accident, April 21st of 2020, 2009, we spent from there till June 8th, my mom's birthday, when we brought her home. And I had unemployment, but that took care of cell phone bill, car payment, car insurance, a little bit of food. But family and friends put out collection jar. There wasn't the social media wasn't we weren't there for the social media on fundraising, and it wasn't really a thing yet. That's when Facebook was really starting to come into play. And I don't feel like I'm going to be able to pay that back, and that's why I give. But I got a buddy like my buddy that says, "Hey, give a little bit, but you're starting to extend yourself. Pull it back. Take
Yeah.
care of yourself first. Push yourself forward, because
Yeah.
if you don't, you're gonna lose everything." If that makes any sense. Am I
It's
making
true.
any sense?
No, you've got to keep the lights on, and that was the same thing as a business guy, with the forge. It's like, hey, I've got to make sure overhead's taken care of. I got to make sure of this, I got to make sure of that. And because you're in it for the long run. I mean, and even as a hobbyist, it's like, hey, I love to be able to give, but it's strategic, It's like I don't give everything away. I
Mhm.
I plan that, and then and it's different. So I always try to do a couple nights a year that I give to nonprofits. So this last year, I got asked by the Green Beret Foundation to make a knife for the Green Beret. The foundation, the Green Beret Foundation, they help, fallen
Finally
warriors and
got
their
it.
families.
I've been sitting there staring at it. Sorry, folks. There's been a whisker. I've been catching my ADHD there. I had to get rid of it.
That's
Sorry,
the most
Tim.
random thing. It's awesome.
Yes.
So, it was a lot of fun. I made this really fancy knife for the Green Beret Foundation, and my wife and I got to go to their big banquet and hobnob with generals and people like that. And it was a lot of fun. And they asked me, "Hey, could you do one again?" And I was like, "No, that's it. That's what I can do for you." And I did one, and just for that reason, I can't. I want to give strategically, and I have to be able to the balance being, hey, I have to take care of my own family. I have to take care of certain needs. I have to make sure that I can keep the lights on and things like that. And so that's where, you know, it's just the reality of life. Just like my income, I don't give all my income away. I have to budget and live a simple lifestyle, and then and manage my money well so I can give. But it's like you said, there's a danger too, and I've watched people get burnt out. Like
And
they'll,
I'm
they'll get
so
burnt out, like doing free stuff for people and giving to charities. Which again, hey, it's wonderful when it's wonderful, but you can't. It's like giving away all your blood and then you die and you'll never
and
donate
I'm
blood.
I'm assuming that you probably faced this in over the years of doing this and such. So what is something people are getting into or coming into life and starting to want to help out? What is your advice to help kind of avoid that, I guess?
Yeah, well, in particular, I would say, when I'm coaching businesses, I always talk to them about, hey, kind of their philanthropy, like, hey, what are you doing to give back? And again, I really, I'm fairly, I don't know, so fairly conservative in, what I tell them. I'm like, hey, you have to make sure that you're taking care of your employees, that you're taking care of, keeping the lights on, that, because if you, like again, I would compare it to a person. If I give a pint of blood, every 6 months for the rest of my life, that's better than giving all my blood at one time. It doesn't make any sense. You don't want to kill yourself. You want to be in this for the long run. And so I've got a young guy right now I'm coaching. He has a laser engraving business, and he wants to get back. And I'm like, dude, okay, let's keep it simple. Let's set some goals. Let's look at some causes that are real. They're not fakey virtue signaling causes or something like that. Save the spotted gerbil or something. Let's look at something that really
Spotted gerbil. I hear they're tasty. Oh, sorry.
you get
I
a
probably
yum.
would eat a gerbil
Yeah,
though.
yeah. So anyway, I'm like, hey, you want to get something that matters, and you just want to even do a little bit. Like if you do $5, I mean that, a lot of times people don't do something because they don't feel like they have a lot of money. And it's like, hey, don't think that way. Little is much when God's in it. So you want to be faithful with little. You want to start giving a little bit and just, regularly. And so with him, I said, hey, let's find some things that really means something to you and your wife. It's not fake, it's not virtue signaling, it's real. Like you really care and it's a real thing that's going on. And then let's just simply do this. Let's do one laser engraving project for that cause. Let's do one. Let's do one a year. That's all. But do it from your heart, and then let's see what can happen from there. But you can't right now. You're a small business. You probably can't afford to do more than that. But just do something. Do something small. I'm in love with small because again, I love the words of Jesus. He said, "Hey, if you're faithful with little, you'll be faithful over
Mustard
much."
seed.
That's it, baby. And I've seen it. I've seen that if you don't, people who don't give $5 when they don't have anything, they won't give 5,000 when they're a millionaire. They won't. That's how it works. Like some people think, well, I'm not generous because I don't have the money to give. No, you're not generous because you're not generous. It's if you do it with a little, you'll do it with a lot. And it's sort of like working out those muscles. And so I encourage people, I say, hey, doing good is good business. Like, it creates opportunities for you to relate to other people. It's just good. And I always try to get the businesses I coach to do something in the area that correlates to their business. Okay, so I had a meeting this morning with a guy I coach who has a big, huge company. They do a lot of wooden flooring and stuff like that. And so what I've worked on with him is said, hey, why don't we help some people, um, with some woodworking machines and things to get them working because that's what you're doing every day in your business. You understand it, sort of the anointing is on you for doing that. And he loves talking. So he's like, man, I'm ready. Let's do something. And so part of what I get to do, which is really fun, is kind of philanthropy consulting. Like I help companies to figure out, hey, how can we be generous in a way that isn't just spitting in the fire? Or it's not wasted, or we're not, my definition of generosity is contributing to the success of other people according to good values. So, in other words, if there's a guy who's strong and he won't work and I give him money, that's not generosity because I'm not contributing to his success. I'm contributing actually and enabling him to fail. And uh, so what's really fun is, is working with people and saying, hey, what are some things on your heart that you would like to see? What are some causes or some things that you just feel deeply troubled about? Let's make a difference. Let's do something. And let's start small. Let's start small and let's go from there. You're laser engraving leather patches on hats. Okay, great. So let's make a couple hats for a nonprofit organization for them to put in a raffle. And yeah, relatively speaking, it's not a lot of money, but you can afford it and you're starting small and you're doing it regularly. It's kind of like saving, giving is a lot like saving. If you do it regularly, small amounts, it's crazy how it grows and builds up over time. And so I didn't mean to get stuck on generosity, but
Yeah, that's
but I
okay.
just feel, I
That's
feel
how we
like you
kind of do around here
win.
behind the anvil. And it's
Yeah.
like in the forge, you start one little project and it kind of it morphs into this and like, well, okay, at the end it's like,
Yeah.
all right, I came up with not exactly where I wanted to start with, but hey, we're here. So
Yeah, well, it's fun because I love the feeling. And maybe other people, just they don't, like Tim, you're stupid or whatever. That's fine. But I love the feeling of when I win, other people are winning too. So in other words, for me, commercially, like at Sugar Creek Forge, when I had my full employees and everything like that, we made I designed and made tools and things for woodworking tools for this company called Blue Spruce Tools, and they're owned by Woodpeckers, which is a really big tool company. And so we made like one order, it was like $70,000 worth of knives, and so we're just like working our little butts off, making these knives. And what was so fun is that in the midst of the hard work, which is very easy to feel like, man, you start hating life because you're doing the same knife over and over and over again, and you're just like, I'm so sick of this.
I know that feeling. I
You know
really
the feeling?
do.
And you're
Um,
just like, ah, but you're like, hey, when I made that sale, it was like, hey, it's not just me who's winning and my employees, and yeah, I'm making good money and all that kind of stuff. It's not just that. It's, man, these guys, Bomba Forge, these guys that I'm working with, they are winning because that's how I supplement what needs to be given, through my business. And then it wasn't just my stuff because I give to other things that I have nothing to do with. They're just, other organizations, to my church, to whatever. And I I love it. And so actually it was really cool because it gave something mundane deeper meaning. Like you're making this thing and you're like, okay, yeah, this is tedious. However, this is a means by which not only am I feeding my family, I'm taking care of my employees, I'm taking care of their families, but also this, I have guys in Uganda who they're going to be blessed these and I want more. I want to help more people. So it's like, wow, I can open a second forge. I can get some other orphans who are, I mean, they have nothing. I mean, they have nothing. When I first started working in Uganda, there was 63% unemployment if you were 30 years old or younger. So it's gotten a little better now, but it's still close to 30%. You can imagine like in our culture, in our country, it's like, I think in Ohio it's like 4% or something like that. And I mean, if you want a job right now, you could get 10 jobs. I mean, everyone's hiring and needing workers. But over there, you got a lot of good people who just they don't have a chance to work or they're underemployed. I met a guy who graduated top of his class as an architect, and he was sweeping the floor in a hardware store. And I talked to him and he was like, man, Mr. Troyer, if there's anything you know of where I could get a job, I've been sweeping the floor here because it's all I can get. And then his boss yelled at him, "Get your butt back to work," blah, blah, blah. I just felt so sorry for him. So there's a lot of underemployment and stuff like that. But it's that feeling again of saying, "Hey, I'm winning in business, but not just for me. It's not just buying a new bass boat or something, which is cool. Buy a bass boat. I have nothing against that. But what I'm saying is that's just a return for me. Like I feel good because I have a boat now, you know. But if I'm also like in the midst of that, yeah, I do have a boat, but I'm also changing the lives of people. And part of my strategy is just to keep showing up. So, it's these guys know and love me. I mean, it's like so Emma, like our manager, was 17. He's now 27. I'm Uncle Tim. I've helped him through all kinds of problems and different challenges that he's faced. And, with all the guys at the Forge, they're not like strangers. They're people that I see two, three times a year, work with, have a relationship with. And to me, that's just so rewarding. It's just so much fun. And it's crazy that my crazy hobby slash fixation on knife making has made all that possible.
this is awesome. And I don't know if you've seen it or not. I started to had this crazy idea a year ago, back well, actually a year and a half ago now. Of I watched this video and I thought it was a totally different concept, but my brain clicked in like I thought it was like the the professional guru of carpentry, and somebody comes in who's been a carpenter, and they battle it out who's the best. That's why my mind said, well, it wasn't that. Then I had this idea. It's like, well, let's just start a little YouTube series called Beat the Smith, where guys have cut my knife class or knife makers come in. We've done three episodes. Three, that's four there. Three episodes. Um, three episodes.
And what's it called again,
It
Mike?
was called Beat the Smith. It's
Oh,
like
Beat the
Beat
Smith.
the Smith,
Okay.
where people came in and challenged me.
Yeah.
The first one I did knife. We called it I picked the knife. It was called the DD Tactical, a tactical blade. A buddy of mine, Dan DeMille, designed for me for my calendar, and I kind of wanted to use that. And we used the first episode kind of pay tribute to his dad, who spent 40 years in law enforcement, retired. Unfortunately, got diagnosed with ALS a few years later, and then shortly passed from that. So I kind of want to pay homage to that, but we also, my adult goal is okay, we do this, the winning blade gets auctioned off for charity. Maybe we'll keep one, or every other one we'll keep one for the shop, but I want to use that for charity, and we got that going on right now. And I don't know if you've seen it. We've got that DD Tactical. What we're doing is we're giving a
It's
coin
awesome.
away. One side's the Beat the Smith logo, episode one. Season one, episode one, and on the other one, it's a friend of mine's son, who's Randy Elmer. He's over in England, going to school to be a footballer, also getting a bachelor's degree and something with sports. I can't sports management, I think, is what it is, um, which is a dual degree, not only in the U.S. but also in the UK. So we're doing that. We're not money. Once all those coins are done, you'll get three entries to win that knife. So that money's going to help him. That way they can. That'll probably pay for travel costs back and forth for this
Yeah.
year. I've known his dad for over 30 years, I guess. I don't know. We've been met in fourth grade and been friends ever since. I think after we got out of a fight or something, I can't remember what. It was over a football game, and after that,
Love it.
we've been friends. But I like to do like that, like I said. And my original idea was called American Bladesmith. I wanted
Uh,
to because after Forge and Fire, on the different groups, and I've read the comments. Man, I wish we could see a little bit more of this particular build or learn a little bit more. And I'm like, and I'm over been mulling this over the years. It's like, how do I do this? Well, Beat the Smith helped me kind of clicked in. We did this. It was easier to do. We got the cameras. It's horrible. I mean, it's horrible to watch. The first one was okay. I mean, we're amateur. Kevin was our host. Not only Kevin was our host, but he was also a camera guy,
yeah.
and it was a lot of fun. It really was. Sam come down. He was the help guy to help out. We did three cards to make it even. He talked you through it. Card, sit down and draw it with your card. Or the third card was hands on, and if you use that one, you couldn't use the other two.
Gotcha.
And so we did that one. We did the first one, me and Chris. And then we did one with me and Sam. We called it the Big Pickle because the guy came down and kind of helped film it and give us a little direction because he's a videographer. He didn't like pickles. So my buddy's like, "Do you got a bunch of pickle jars?" He doesn't like it. Yes, I put pickle jars all over. We had pickles through the day. And he was a good spirit. So he's just like, "You guys are gross." And then we did one with my daughter, second, third generation beat second, and of course I lost. You can go on YouTube on American Bladesmith channel, but we're rolling it now into American Bladesmith.
Gotcha.
I want to keep it family, educational. It's kind of Duck Dynasty meets
Yeah.
Fast and Loud with knives, but I want to show what I do in my shop. Yes, the idea behind it is to promote the shop so business can come in, so I can take care of my kid, take care of my series, and also build off of that. I we were, I'm hoping in the next little while we'll start filming some episodes, start building that up and drop them next year.
That's cool.
I kind of got called to the challenge to town, so hopefully we're going to be traveling to Missouri to film.
Right
But
on.
um, with the podcast and everything, sharing the stories like yours, but I also want to share with American Bladesmith, not only the community of bladesmithing, show more than just what Forge of Fire. Forge of Fire was fun. It was a competition. It's since wrapped. I guess the everything's done. They sold off everything. Um, be kind of cool if we could get our knives back from the first round. Uh,
Yeah. That would be
but
awesome.
I've been just, listening to this, and I kind of thought about before we talk, it'd be kind of cool. Maybe someday, Lord willing, we can take American Bladesmith and come show with you, maybe travel with you,
Sure.
and do something like that. I know we could do, you know, beat the Smith. we still want to do competition with it. Maybe we go over there and have a um, Smith versus Smith episode over in
Yeah,
Uganda, or something like that.
absolutely.
So we can share that message with you or something like that. That would be
Yeah.
awesome. Hopefully, Lord willing, we can do that. But no reason I just bring that up and kind of went squirrel on everything. It's just what we're trying to do, and that's what I want to kind of do with this podcast is share a good message. Share Christ,
Yeah.
everything else. Is there anything else you would want to touch on before we wrap up here? We're getting about an hour and a half now, so I'm
Yeah.
sure you're getting it's 2 hours behind me. So
Sure. Yeah, no, I'm just so glad that I got to meet you, Mike, and John, and be on, Forged and Fire and Ken, and to see, that there was something deeper that happened than just something episodic. We were just there once, but like you mentioned, our opportunity to do that little auction and raise about $6,000 or whatever it was,
yeah, something like that.
and just a continued friendship. It's just been a lot of fun, and um, I think also it's like there's been a lot of people who are interested in knife making because of Forged and Fire, and that's been really good. But then there's been a lot of people who, you know, tried to do it for a living or whatever, and just kind of dropped out or got burnt out. And I understand that that's going to happen. There's certain things like real estate, this cyclical, like
Right.
all these real estate people, and they get out of it, and so I understand that. Um, but I think that the I think that many people making knives, part of the reason they get burnt out is they get into it and then social media is awesome. It helps you see a bunch of things, learn a bunch of things, but then they get kind of like caught up in hype and caught up in, like all
The
things.
message is kind of diluted, is more or less what.
Yeah, and so, I would encourage people to say, hey, if you're making knives, don't forget about the just the joy of doing it, and that you want in it in terms of longevity. Like I did, I got to a point one time where, I was just about getting sick of it. I was like, man, and I didn't want to. I just like, man, I don't want to lose knife making. And so I just took a break for a while and I just said, I'm just not gonna make anything until I feel like it. And then, that's sort of passed, and I'm glad for that because it's been such a great hobby and, at times a livelihood or a business for me. And so, but just the joy of doing it to do it. And I feel like you get your best work. You get your most original stuff when you're doing it for fun. You're doing it, you're not trying to be the latest and greatest or whatever. You're just trying to be a good, honest, solid knife maker, make a great product and enjoy it and have your friends enjoy your knives too. And so I don't know, for whatever that's worth, I feel like there's especially early on, there's guys that I've talked to are really discouraged and they're in their second year of knife making and they're wanting to do something that a master smith has been doing for 25 years. And I'm like, chill
I'm,
out.
I've been doing it for 30 years, and
Yeah,
I'm
just
still looking at stuff, and I'm scared to do it. I'm going to do it. I'm just scared to do it. I'm working my way there. I kind of have
yeah.
taught myself into it over a time period.
Yeah,
Um,
and so I would tell people that, and then I'd also tell them not to be intimidated, just like, hey, just try. Like, I've a knife making friend who's just always made straight knives, and he was like, I'm gonna work up the courage to do some folding knives, and I want you to show me. And boy, this is, and I said, dude, don't psych yourself up. I said, they were the first knives I made were folding knives. I was just too dumb to know it was hard, and I did it. I, took my time and, of course they didn't look great. They were, but it didn't take long. It did, I made four or five and then all of a sudden, hey, I had a really good one, solid lock. It looked good. And it was funny because I also learned, you have to value your own work. Pricing knives is hard. People ask me like, "What
Yes.
should I?" And I'm like, I don't know. I'm the worst at it. But what was really funny
I've
is,
struggled that with years, and
yeah.
I
So
got
Mike,
something that I want to tie into what we're going here, but I'll let you finish here real quick.
yeah. So I made this really nice, beautiful folding knife. It was locked back and just really thin and nice and gorgeous, and everything. Just grind was great. Everything was great. And a guy called me and he said, "Hey, do you have any knives for sale? You know, I want to buy a knife for my son." And so I was like, "Yeah, I've got this folding knife that you can come look at." And I said it's a little more expensive because folder takes about 3 times as long to make as a straight knife. And so but if you're interested, so on his way to my house, I was like, you know what? I I wanted to sell the knife, and it was back in the day, but I wanted to sell the knife for $65. And that seemed like a lot of money to me at the time. And I was like, I don't want to sell this. Like, I'm not, I'll keep this before I trade this knife for $65. There's no way. And so I didn't want to be impolite because this guy was already driving to see me. And so uh so anyway, when he got there, I thought, well, I'll just make the price so high that he'll be like, it's too rich for my blood. Because I had told him on the phone too. I said, hey, if it's too expensive, I will not be offended if you don't buy it. And so I tripled the price, thinking he's gonna say, no way, no knife is. And I told him, I said, hey, here's what, I have to have. And he got his checkbook and he wrote me a check and handed it to me. And he could have knocked me over with a stick. I was like, what in the world just happened? And it was kind of like, hey, uh, if I don't believe in my own product and I don't value it, then I can't see why anyone else would. And also the value is intrinsic that if, I'm sure there'd be some people who like, I don't like that. That's not my stuff. Okay, well, no problem. It's not for you then. But
Yep.
but it's like uh doing it for fun and impressing yourself. That's the big thing is, if you do it, if you work to impress other people, they're just fickle. You'll have some fanboys and people who, they're liking you and kissing your butt and being your big and until there's a new flavor and then you're forgotten. So if that's what you're working for, you're just going to be unhappy. But if you're like, hey, no, it's something deeper than that. I love doing this and I thank God for every hunter who's carrying a Sugar Creek Forge knife out to shoot, hunt deer this year. And they're not famous or spent huge dollars, but they love my knives and love me. And I want to get satisfaction out of it. And so I didn't, make that long, but I feel like that would be my encouragement to any, younger knife makers out there. It's like, hey, just, have fun doing it, impress yourself. Know in your heart. It's like, man, this is real. My heat treat's right. This is great. My grind, the geometry is good. My blade is sharp. It works well, and I really enjoy it. And that's what produces longevity and produces value that's my opinion anyway.
As you were saying that, talking about working and everything else, it reminds me, and I wanted to bring this up, and I think this is the right time about finding that overworking yourself or extending yourself or helping with charity. You did a video a while back that I remember every now and then. I go back and watch it. I go find it. And I think it's on YouTube too. I think your heroes group, your hero.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Group hero.
Um,
Mhm.
am I saying that right?
Yeah,
Heroes,
you are. Yeah, group
your
hero.
peers, your hero group. If I gotta go back and
Walski's.
watch it. So, um, and I kind of lucked into this group of entrepreneurs. They're veterans. A lot of them are veterans. Some of them are civilians.
Hmm.
One gentleman, Eric Rance, he does 22 Salute, who is a vodka and spirits bourbon company with coffee, and the profits of that takes a portion of the profits of that to help veterans and PTSD and first responders, etc.
Yeah.
And you okay? Somebody just stubbed her toe. She's got to feed the dogs real quick.
Okay.
Oh, she stubbed her finger. Ouch.
I
And I remember that, and every now and then if I go back and I find that video, it is that on YouTube by chance? I know it's on
yeah,
Facebook.
it's on Facebook. and YouTube, but it's easier to find on Facebook. Like if you go on my Facebook page, it's there.
Okay. I'm
And
gonna go find it and share it again. It's a
yeah,
great message. I know you're driving down the road and you're sharing, you're
yeah,
talking about your buddy who um you were jumping a
right,
crevasse or
exactly.
something like that, and
Yep, yep.
you didn't quite make it if I remember correctly. If I'm screwing up the story, please correct me. And you caught the other side, but and you're like, oh, I didn't make it. Everybody else made it, and they pull you up, and they're just like, yeah, you did it. At least you did it. At least you
Yeah.
tried. You're working in that forging. It's like
Yeah.
letting the maker and the maker, and I refer to the Almighty God or Christ into your life, and letting that buyer come into you so it can make you and mold you. And that's the same thing with life, what you're doing. If you're trying to be a knife maker, or you're trying to be a businessman, a programmer, or anything like that,
Yeah.
and but that's right here. I'm trying to get this through. So, but you find that heroes group, and I kind of found that,
Yeah.
and they'll call your shit on, pardon my French, they'll
Yeah.
call
No,
you,
no.
they call you on the carpet,
It's a great way to say it.
and they're not there to kiss your ass, and
Yeah.
oh yeah, they'll cheer you on, but then I'm like, hey, pull you aside, hey bud, I seen this, you might not like that, but we kind of need
Yeah.
it. Same with the Almighty, and I think I was getting burned out. I was able to have the opportunity after um to go full time here, 2020. I finally got tired of working for people, working for other people. I hated going to work and dealing with people. I'm not a people person. My mom says you've been that way your whole life. I had to go find a job last fall about this time. Went to one company, thought it'd be cool to go work there. It was great for a few months, and then listened to somebody in the company say some stuff, and I'm like, I don't want to be part of this place. I don't like
Yeah.
this. Um, I won't say why because
Sure.
I don't want to get that on here and such because
Yeah.
there were some aspects of that story. And so I got into another company and it was good for a few months. And then I started figuring out things that, you know, their communication skills with with people working for them. Maybe it was just me. I don't know. But and I found out later I left. Me and that job parted ways. They kind of let me go, and it was more mutual than they think. And I was sitting out in the car and I was like, Lord, if they're going to let me go, please let's get it done over with and everything else. So I get back on straight, go back in there. And it's like, hey, we need to talk to you. I'm like, oh, that was fast. And they said that, and I'm like, oh, thank God. And I said that
Right.
out loud, and their eyes on my face, like, oh, sorry, it's more mutual than you think. And I'm back now, and a friend of mine, again, in this hero group,
Yeah.
your tribe, or however you want to call it,
Hmm.
he's like, hey, you ever thought about just maybe making some knives about 60, $70? And I'm like, 60, he's like $60. Let's go, well, I could do it a little. I'm saying, well, I got a lot of spring steel here that I built up over the years. It's just sitting there. I need to use it up. It's rusting away. And I'll still do my Damascus and everything. So I was like, you know what? I got an idea. So I went out and forged out some 6-inch knives. I've got tons of hand materials just laying around, all done pieces, need to be used up. I did buy some newer stuff, and I'm loving it. And it's like, and after I got done with that conversation, and I just kind of paused, this, all right, I hear you, Lord. It was not, yes, it was His suggestion, but I
Oh,
also felt that, hey,
well,
listen, and there's been time in my life that I've had things going on, and I heard that little voice.
yeah.
And of course, us being human went the other way. And then afterwards, it's like, oh, I tried to tell you, bud, but here, come on, let's go back. And I'm like, I'm sorry, I heard you,
Yeah.
but I ignored. And then that time I heard it, I was like, I'm trying to listen a little bit better, and I'm trying to go back to full time here. I probably will pick up another part time job or something. Just I got
Mhm.
my daughter now full time,
Yeah.
and I just feel that spirit of everything, and I think I'm going in the right direction. I've shared with the I have my restaurant dream, my new shop and everything, and be able to do things. It's still there. I want to charge through that path, cut through everything, make that path. Well, as you know, the Lord's like, no, you're impatient. You're going to learn patience here. Now that's what I've really learned is I got to learn. Keep your eye on the vision, trust the
Yeah.
process. And that's kind of what like I said, bring up your heroes group and everything else. And if you guys go Tim Troyer's thing, it's in his videos. Watch that. He's got some also other great videos. If you can, throw that on YouTube as well. But um, one of the things I kind of do as we wrap up the show here, your words of wisdom, I guess you could say, and then I would like to ask you to share a prayer with us and everything else. And
Sure.
also, what can people do that are listening to this that want to know more about the reckoning? Where can they find? Can they do to help out in their
Yeah,
little way of everything, or learn more
absolutely.
about it? So I want to give that the opportunity where they can
Sure.
find everything and everything else.
I appreciate that, Mike. So, yeah, so www.thereckoning.org is our website, so you can check that out. You can contact me also. I'm real easy to get a hold of. Probably the easiest is, send me a message on Facebook. You just Tim Troyer, and I have a Sugar Creek Forge page, but really just my personal page would be the one to look for. We always need help. This is the time of year where we're raising funds. So, we are a 501(c)(3) organization. We're registered with the government. We're 100%, legal and all that. We give tax receipts for every, if you give a donation, we give you a receipt. Um, I'm really happy too, Mike. One of the things that we do, I just had a donor ask me last week or so. They were like, well, if I give you $1, how much of the dollar is used for administration and how much is used for program services? Because typically,
Mhm.
if you're 20% and lower, you're good. You're really doing a good job. But there's some charities I won't give to because they're spending 60 and 70% of what you give them on administration. So they're paying the CEO and all the workers. And hey, you got to pay workers. I understand that you've got overhead, but that just has a chilling effect on donors. They don't want to give to an organization. And so what I've done is something a little bit different, and it was fun to tell this donor that because he was, wanting to know. And I said, hey, in the reckoning, we raise all of our administrative money separately. So I raise
Oh
all of
wow,
that
that's cool.
money so that when someone gives, like if you say, like, let's say there's a knife maker listening to the podcast and you're like, it would be so much fun. I'm going to take $100 from sale of knives and I'm going to send it to the reckoning for Bomba Forge because they're knife makers. I'm a knife maker. I want to help. That would be so awesome if that happened. Well, I want you to know if you do that, 100% of that money goes to them because I've already raised the money to buy copy paper and pencils and keep the lights on. And I don't have to do that. With honor, I could use some of that donation money up to 20% and be like proud of that. But what I'm thankful is that I've not had to, and I'm going to keep doing that as long as I can and say,
That's awesome.
so yeah, it's
That
so fun,
I think
Mike.
that's unheard of, honestly. I don't think
I
I've
don't
ever heard
know
that.
anyone else who's doing it, but that's what we've done. And so, I raise all the money that's needed for administration and then also for program services so that people know if you're given $100, 100, not 99, goes exactly what you're giving it for. And so, people can help. If people could say, hey, I'd love to give $15 and buy a bag of charcoal, or I'd love to, we would love to have your help. Um, you can see some of the other projects and things that we're doing on the website there. And then my wife was talking to me in the background. So
Hi,
anyway,
wife. Hi, Mrs.
yeah.
Troyer.
So yeah, so that's it. You know, uh, my encouragement to in that is, you just do what you feel too, or if you're just interested. I'm honored that anyone is just interested and looks at it, or whatever. So,
Is
but
there
Mike, thanks, man. This has
oh
been
yeah.
so much fun.
Is there anything that I can do, besides this being on the podcast here? Is there anything my shop can do to help out? I mean, I'm game for another round of
Yeah,
building some knives and
I,
and
I Absolutely, Mike. I was thinking about that the other day. I was thinking to myself, it'd be fun as if you, me, and John and Ken or whomever, would do something again or something collaborative. I think that'd be a lot of fun.
Yeah,
And
let's definitely talk off on here
yeah,
and we'll kind of work that out.
yeah,
But yeah, let's do that. I'd love to do that again because it was a lot of fun and it was just
yeah,
I didn't think we'd raise that much, but it's like it's
right.
so cool.
Yeah, it was really awesome.
And where the knives went out. Actually, one of my guys that followed my page won the knife,
Yeah,
and
it's
that
just
was
so
really
cool.
cool. I think he won John's knife, and I was like, "Oh, I know who made that. That's awesome!" So,
That's awesome.
but well, let's wrap this up.
Yeah,
Would you would you mind? And that's one of the thing, kind of thing with a lot of things going on in the world and everything.
sure.
Well, after an incident we had with Charlie Kirk, and it's like, you know
Yeah,
what? I think I'm going to close this out with a prayer. And if that bothers somebody,
gotcha.
well, I think you need to take a long look in the mirror and really meditate on things and
Yeah,
find yourself. But would you share a prayer with us,
I'd be
Tim,
glad to.
and I'll just then and then we'll wrap it up from
Sure,
there.
man. Yep, I'd be glad to. Lord, thanks so much for the chance to be with Mike on the podcast here. Thanks for everyone watching. And Lord, I just pray a blessing over him and a blessing over all those who are watching and listening. You're big enough to do that. And Lord, we do. We just lift up our country today that you would continue. Jesus, you're the Prince of Peace. And I just ask in your mighty name that you would bring peace right now and sanity to some of the just insane problems and somehow in our country an inability for people just to be able to talk and share their opinions, to share their convictions, even when they're different than other people. And that's what we want, Lord. We want people to be able to share their thoughts. We believe in freedom of speech. And I know there's not freedom from consequences if, we shout fire in a crowded theater, and that's not freedom of speech. There's going to be consequences for that. But Lord, it just seems like things have gotten so polarized. And so we just ask for your help with that. Um, Lord, thanks so much for the knife community. Thank you for just all the people out there who've just been so generous and kind to me, to others, and for your sake. And so we just bless you. And thanks again for Mike. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. You know what's
Amen.
kind
Hey,
of
you are
have you ever
welcome.
been in a prayer and sometimes you ever feel like somebody comes up and puts a hand on your shoulder? I just had that happen. I just ooh.
That's
I've
awesome.
been, I don't know if it's spirit or what, or relative
Yeah.
or whatever, but I could felt like somebody come up and just kind of. So thank you for Tim for that, and thank you
Hey,
for
you
sharing that.
betcha.
There's a lot of stuff I didn't know about that.
Yeah.
I want to extend an invitation. Anything you want to come jump on here, let me know. We'll schedule it.
Okay.
This will drop probably about mid-November.
Okay.
I'll send you a note and
Yeah.
I'll send some stuff over on Messenger if you want to review it
Sounds good.
with
Please
a
do. Yeah.
description. But hey, that was awesome. I learned a
Yeah.
lot. I mean, just to be able to help buy somebody's freedom. You're not buying a person, you're buying, buying them. They had their
Yeah.
freedom. We just had to cut that chain and
Yep.
everything.
Exactly.
And it's amazing what you can do with a knife.
Yeah.
I mean,
Crazy.
it's just a simple tool. I got one
Yeah.
from this is my daughter. She got from Dustin Road. She created some steel for it. I mean, it's that literally. I have a saying. It's called "A knife's a good friend when you have no other,"
Hmm.
and what you can do with that, and
Yeah.
you've literally set people free.
That's true.
I mean,
Cool.
that is Christ-like knife, next
Oh,
level. I think I really need to step up my game here.
no.
I'm not to be kind of serving, but
No,
anyway,
no.
we're gonna wrap this up. Hey, thanks
Yep.
folks for joining us. Thank you, Tim. Again, you want to shout out your stuff real quick on where they can
Okay.
find you, and then we'll wrap this up.
You want me to give a shout out on that?
Yeah, just on your
Okay, yeah,
where they can
sorry.
find you
So
again.
yeah, so you can find me on Facebook, Tim Troyer, Sugar Creek Forge, on Instagram, Tim Sugar Creek Forge. Those are the main two. YouTube, I have a YouTube channel called Sugar Creek Forge. I have not posted in a while. It's bad. I've got a lot of good followers, and I'm just
It
having
happens.
a good time. So, but the nice thing is, I'm in a I moved. I'm in a new place. I have a new shop. It's it's bigger, super conducive to doing some videos. So I plan to get back into that. And because that was a lot of fun making YouTube videos. I just had a great time doing that. And so
Well,
that's where you can find me. And if you're looking, and
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Maybe we can do an American Bladesmith episode out there and come
Hey,
out and film because
I don't
I
know.
do want to take that on the road as well, but more than my shop and
Sure.
show other people
Yeah.
and
I
hopefully
don't
get
know.
eyes on
I don't know
everybody
why
else.
we wouldn't,
So, all
So,
right. Well,
all right.
we're gonna end this. Hang on with me real quick, and we'll chat for a
Okay.
minute just afterwards. Hey, thanks, folks, for joining another awesome podcast, Behind the Anvil with
Woo-hoo.
Tim Troyer, founder of thereckoning.org. Thanks, folks, and please remember like and share if you're watching this on Facebook or YouTube. Ah, if you're following us on YouTube, if you haven't
Wherever.
subscribed yet, subscribe to Tim's stuff too. Hit that thing and the bell, and we're also available on all podcast platforms.
That's
Thank
right.
you, and God bless.